Is the Israeli army planning a coup against Benjamin Netanyahu? It is a startling allegation and absolutely unprecedented in the history of Israel, a country that has been at war since its birth. War is led by generals, but in a democracy, generals are led by elected leaders. This has been true of Israel. So why has Sarah Netanyahu, no less a person than the wife of the Prime Minister Netanyahu, made such a shocking allegation? What is the truth? Is she reacting to a situation where Israel's generals are telling Netanyahu some harsh truths about how the war against Hamas and Hezbollah is going? Is Netanyahu reacting so dangerously because he and his wife do not want to hear the truth from their generals? Have Israeli generals had enough of the Israeli Prime Minister? Do they now believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu is placing his personal interest above that of his country's interest?
לשנות את הגישה הצבועה והעוינת של האיחוד האירופי.
After all, it's no secret now that the Israeli military and Netanyahu do not see eye to eye. In fact, last week, an IDF spokesman admitted that Israel had failed in the Gaza war objectives. To observers, this seemed to be an unbelievable admission in the midst of a conflict that has taken a terrible toll on innocent lives. But was the IDF spokesman essentially questioning Netanyahu's stated war goals? You see, the accusation by Sarah Netanyahu has taken the drama to a whole different level, with her accusation that top army officials are trying to orchestrate a coup against her husband. You heard that right, a coup in Israel. The accusations were made last week during a private meeting between the wife of the Israeli Prime Minister and the families of the hostages. During the meeting, Sarah Netanyahu, the wife of Benjamin Netanyahu, said, and I'm quoting, "Israeli forces are seeking to stage a military coup against my husband." And when interrupted by the people in the meeting that she should not claim distrust towards the Israeli military, Sarah clarified, saying that her distrust applies only to senior army figures and not the army as a whole. And she went on to insist more than once that the Israeli army top brass wants to stage a coup. But Netanyahu's wife is not the only family member who has accused the military leaders. Earlier this month itself, her son, Yair Netanyahu, made similar accusations. On the 17th of June, Yair accused the military and the Shin Bet security service of betrayal during the October 7 Hamas attack last year. In a post on the platform X, he wrote, and I'm quoting, "What are they trying to hide? If there was no betrayal, then why are they afraid of external and independent parties investigating what happened? Why did the army and intelligence chiefs keep claiming that Hamas was deterred? Where was the Air Force on October 7th? Let us keep the validity of such questions to one side. Why are the wife and the son of the Prime Minister interfering with such sensitive political matters? This is appalling and unbelievable in a democracy, and Israel is a robust democracy with a government that has always been accountable to the Israeli people. There is increasing evidence, in fact, that Netanyahu and his family are losing their balance as the Prime Minister is being asked questions about accountability. In recent months, many Israeli military, security and political leaders have taken responsibility for the failure that led to the Hamas attack. But Netanyahu has refused to accept any responsibility for the attack, although it happened when he was the Prime Minister. And the most important lapse, by the way, is the fact admitted by the establishment that intelligence reports about an impending Hamas attack had reached the government by mid-September, but no one did anything. Who was responsible for such dereliction of duty? Recent developments showing that tensions between Netanyahu and the military are coming to a boil. It confirms that there is growing concern about Netanyahu in the highest quarters of the military. As if these problems are not enough, An old contradiction has come to the surface thanks to a judgment of the Israel Supreme Court. It is about the ultra-Orthodox sect called Haredi and their right to avoid conscription in pursuit of their religious duties. More recently, the military has been frustrated by Netanyahu's fight to maintain exemption from service, a privilege enjoyed by ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel, especially at a time when Israeli forces are stretched thin due to war. But the most public statement came when IDF spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, admitted that Hamas cannot be destroyed. And that's a big admission coming out of Israel. Destroying Hamas, remember, has been one of the only two key goals of Israel as stated by Benjamin Netanyahu. But Hagari's admission that it cannot be done reflects fears among the military leaders that Netanyahu's failure to articulate a vision for a post-war Gaza could squander the gains made against Hamas. You see, the most important concern for Israeli military is ensuring that hard-won tactical gains against Hamas do not go to waste. And for that, Admiral Hagari has said that there has to be an alternative to Hamas in Gaza. But as per reports from Western media, Israeli generals have accused Netanyahu of blocking any plans for governing Gaza after conflict in the off-the-record briefings. Netanyahu has also been accused of preventing the creation of an alternative governing force or authority for Gaza. In fact, in recent days, the IDF has had to redeploy forces to northern Gaza, which it had previously claimed to have cleared. Following the resignation of two key ministers in his war cabinet, Netanyahu was forced to dissolve the cabinet. Israeli citizens are also demanding Netanyahu's resignation. And as per some polls, if an election were held now, Netanyahu would lose. Most Israelis, in fact, are in favor of holding an early election. As you can see, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is facing challenges on multiple fronts. He is involved in disputes with the Israeli military, members of his own party, leaders of other parties in his governing coalition, and with the Biden administration in the US. What does all of this tell you? It tells us that there is a significant lack of trust. It suggests basically that the military no longer believes in the political leadership, and that's a big problem. Meanwhile, Palestinians in Gaza continue to suffer. The death toll in Gaza has risen to 37,658. Thousands of tons of humanitarian aid stranded on the Gaza side of the main Israeli border crossing. Israeli military leaders are worried about shouldering the burden. Some want to wind down the campaign in Gaza. They want to focus on the rising tensions with Hezbollah, the Lebanon-based armed group, remember, that is far more dangerous than Hamas. But even before the war in Gaza, Netanyahu's government and the military did not always see eye to eye. Remember, just last year, thousands of Israeli military reservists announced that they would not volunteer for duty to protest against Netanyahu's plan to weaken the country's judiciary. The burn marks from that event are still evident. The question is the situation shaping up into some kind of military rebellion against Netanyahu? Will the Israeli military really declare a